This episode is brought to you by Liquiflow Pump Company, a veteran-owned and operated manufacturer of premium efficient centrifugal water pumps. Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Net Positive. Today's a very special episode. First off, I'd like to dedicate this to my friend Tyler Johnston, who always held me accountable, told me to keep going. So this man we have today, very special guest. I met him 2 years ago. He was on stage with Bill Clinton and Neil deGrasse Tyson, and most recently with President Obama. He is literally at the cutting edge of the global green building and sustainability movement. And he is the president and CEO of the U.S. Green Building Council. So Mahesh, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Sam.
I appreciate your time.
It's good to meet you again.
Yeah, thank you. So you remember meeting me at Green Build, huh?
Yes,
and,
I do. I do.
I shook his hand and I said, I'm starting a video series and I'm going to interview you. And I didn't know it was going to take 2 years, but here we are. So I appreciate it.
It just only took 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. So for people who aren't familiar, what is the U.S. Green Building Council?
U.S. Green Building Council was established in 1993. Mm-hmm. Interestingly, it's the same year I graduated also, so I have something in common with USGBC. And the mission was of USGBC was very simple. Buildings, communities, and cities will regenerate and sustain the health and vitality of all life within a generation. Now, that's a mouthful. So lately, we have simplified it, and we have simply said better buildings equal better lives, which means better communities equal better lives, better cities equal better lives, better homes equal better lives. So it's all about creating better life for people who we care about and who we see and we don't see, and importantly, making sure that there is enough to go around so that we can make this world a prosperous place.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the USGBC's flagship product, the LEED rating system, has done, giving people a way to do that, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I mean, in 1998, USGBC established LEED, which stands for, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. But I focus on the word L. L is leadership, right? Mm-hmm. So today, LEED has become a common language around the world. What do I mean by that? Is that people did not know what a green building meant in 93 or 98.
And some people still don't.
Still don't. But for the people who are in the community, I would say architects, engineers, contractors, consultants, product manufacturers, LEED became a language for them to understand how to develop sustainable buildings. Mm-hmm. So what that means is that buildings that can save energy, save water, save waste, actually be good on its occupants, and importantly, be good on its environment and drive economic prosperity for the community is the ultimate conversation. That is what LEED has done. Now, what does it mean in terms of the larger conversation? Is that if you are in a LEED building, that means you're doing good by the planet, good by the people inside it, and most importantly, you are driving the economic prosperity. And now I'm proud to say that this month, as you're interviewing me, we have 100,000 projects in 176 countries.
I saw that. That's
exactly.
Impressive. And it might be the U.S. Green Building Council, but this is very much a global organization.
Absolutely, 176 countries and territories. And I just came back from Turkey. I was in Madrid, Spain, and I was in Milan, Italy. All of them are excited about our mission. So what LEED has done is that truly transform the market to understand that leaders must act differently. That means they have to care about the environment, they have to care about their people, and that's how you drive economic prosperity. Exactly. So we are excited about LEED.
Yeah, and that's one thing, like you said, you need to care about the people. That's, I'd say, the main thing I want to talk about today is you've taken this conversation of, people didn't understand, okay, so we've adjusted the lighting temperature in the room. What does that do? You've really made this, you've humanized this conversation, right? And you guys have recently launched the Living Standard campaign. So we'll talk a lot about that. But first I want to talk about you. So you used to live in Raleigh, North Carolina, correct?
Yes,
background
indeed.
in IT, North Carolina. There we go.
Yes, I like North Carolina. RTP is my favorite place.
Yeah. Okay. But before that, you grew up in India, correct?
Yes, I was brought up in Chennai, India. Mm-hmm. If you know where it is in the map, it's towards Sri Lanka. For the people who have not seen the map. And I obviously had a fantastic upbringing. My father and my mother were extremely kind to me by investing in me, despite their constraints. My father had $50 a month in terms of his own income. But what happened was, even with the $50, he still made sure that he paid for my college. Yeah. He paid for whatever he can, and he should. And he made me a computer science engineer. which is a great start, right? It's the best investment. I always say, yes, my father did not give me $1 billion, but he gave me the best education I can get.
Yeah, so, I read an article, you were talking about it, and you said a quote from him about values. I can't quite remember. I couldn't find the article once I left the page. I searched and searched, but do you remember what it was? You said something along the lines of values cost nothing, but they are priceless. I can't quite remember.
Correct. That is pretty accurate. I think I'm just throwing a blank here, but it'll come to me a little bit later during the conversation.
Well, anyways, I was talking to my grandmother the other day, and she made me promise to ask you, do you feel that you, I guess, embody the American dream? I told her about that article and where you came from, and here you are now in Washington, D.C., at the head of a global movement in the U.S. Green Building Council, and she said, wow, this man seems like he's really embodying the American dream. So.
First of all, thanks to your grandmother, because she's absolutely right. She is really related to what I believe every single day. Mm-hmm. So just let me set a context for you for a second, so that I come from a people of 1.3 billion, right? And I belong to a very poor family. I'm not unique in India. There are 70% of the people are living below the poverty line. So I don't want to pretend like I'm the only one, but I am one of the people in that 70%. And thanks to my parents, I was able to get good education. Then because of my education, because of the play, again, technology being such an interesting dimension, I was able to actually migrate to US due to work, not to study.
Okay, work.
And I started my work at IBM. And then from IBM, I spent 15 years with IBM in multiple positions. And then joined US Green Building Council. And then at US Green Building Council, I was given the opportunity to lead the organization as its CTO, CIO. Then I became a COO. Then eventually to succeed our dear founder, Stephen Frederici, I should say Rick Frederici, because Rick is my brother, mentor, and most importantly, the person who actually told me that I should take this to the next level. The vision that he had built, he told me that it's your opportunity to take it to the next level. So being able to given that opportunity in my last 21 years in the US, I truly believe can happen only in the United States. In US only, you can have access to opportunities, your hard work will be recognized, and most importantly, you learn constantly from the environment to be an entrepreneur, to be a technocrat, and importantly, how to be a better leader and a follower. And that is something that I truly believe I've received from America, and I'm delighted and excited that I can be an example for anybody who hopes to come to America and be that next person.
That's awesome. That's very inspiring. So I read an article and you signed off, and at Greenbuild when I met you, you closed your keynote speech saying that you are an Indian, an immigrant, and an optimist. So
for sure.
I guess everything you just said, that's why you're so optimistic, huh?
Absolutely, because I'm an Indian, because nobody can forget their mother and mother country. And so you cannot take it out of you. So it's part of you. But I'm an immigrant, and why I'm proud as an immigrant is that you hear a lot of concerns about this country's challenges with immigration and all in the news article. I don't have any gripe, because I truly believe that I was given an opportunity, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. And why I feel grateful is because that the optimism that I carry in my heart is that I think with the knowledge that I have gathered, I can do better for people. I can do good by people. And most importantly, it's my time to pay it forward. So rather than complaining, let me think about what can I do next for my fellow human, who I know or who I don't know. Preferably who I don't know. That'll be a lot more interesting.
Yeah, and what you guys said at Greenbuild 2017, which is largely what you just said now, is really the reason I started this series. You were saying that we need to go all in, that less bad does not equal good, and that we all have the opportunity to make a difference and really, crank up the volume on sustainability. So I appreciate that messaging, and now let's talk about how you guys are doing that and the shift in the conversation.
So a couple of things, right? I'm glad you touched on the 2017 Greenbuild Boston. That's my favorite, right? Because I started as the CEO. It's my first Greenbuild as the CEO. And the message was very simple, all in. So we all need to be all in, which means that don't be tentative. Give everything you got and bring the best optimism to the game and hope, so that you can be hopeful for others. That's number one. Second thing is that in the last 25 years, USGBC has done a good job of coining a term called green buildings for everyone within a generation. But then our definition of everyone changes based on who I like, who I don't like, who I want to include, who I don't want to include. Everyone means everyone. Not someone, not the people I like, not the people I dislike.
Right.
Everyone
not just
means
the rich communities.
Everyone, right? That's what the game is all about. So that is why 2017 will always be memorable to me. And also, it was time to really focus on what's happening in the market. Leadership is great, but leadership without actually defining what that leadership looks like in terms of stories, in terms of people's accomplishments, is such an important task to do. That's what you're trying to do. Thanks to you for taking the lead on storytelling and being inspired to really inspire our community, because people will remember stories.
Yeah, and you said at Greenbuild, if we're going to accomplish these goals we've set, we have to highlight the lives and the work of the people doing it. And
without doubt.
I mean, here we are.
And thanks to you, you're doing it. And people will remember stories, but they need data to understand it. But they're not going to remember data if you don't have stories. And you have to affect the emotions of people. And when people care, transformation automatically happens. So that's the journey. So now what we are doing now is that it's very clear. 25 years of USGBC, 100,000 projects, leaders in a phenomenal amount of job. But then I asked the question, what next? Existing buildings is our biggest challenge. But when you look at the amount of existing building spaces, that's more than 90% at least in the world. And if you look around and see how many of those buildings are transformed, not enough. Not enough people demanding that they need to live in a better environment. You still will walk into a lot of buildings or even some homes that have molds in them, that have bad indoor air quality, no lighting, the list goes on. So when we talk about everyone, how can we exclude the 90% of existing buildings? So that's how the conversation started. Then the question is, why are the people inside the existing buildings don't relate to it, don't connect to it? It became very obvious that people don't care. And then we unpack to understand why people don't care, because people don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that they don't care that the living condition is affecting their child's health, but it's that, you know, reducing the carbon emissions might not be very important to them, right?
Correct, or they may not relate to it, right? Because people want is improvements to their day-to-day life experience, right? One of the guys that we interviewed said that, hey, coming to Washington, D.C. and having a beer on the weekend is quality of life for me. You can't beat that. A beer in Washington, D.C., 14th Street is nice for a weekend. I mean, I can do that every day if I want to, but I don't. But he likes to come and do it here. So it's all needs and wants are very different. So you have to connect to people in terms of their day-to-day life experiences. So that triggered the whole Living Standard campaign, saying that buildings connect with people. Do people connect with buildings?
Right.
That's a fundamental conversation.
So let's start with where the people are, and let's take them to where we're trying to help them get to.
Absolutely.
So one of the main tools you guys are using to change this conversation is the Living Standard campaign. Would you like to elaborate on that?
So it's almost a year now. We celebrated our anniversary for the Living Standard campaign, which I'm very excited by in the recent Green Bill. So the Living Standard basically was about trying to ask the fundamental question, buildings connect with people. Do people connect with buildings? And what does it mean is that how do we make sure that we expand the adoption of green buildings, particularly the demand for green buildings? Because if people demand more, then things will change faster.
Right.
So when we talk about bigger topics like climate change, you're talking about 2 degrees Celsius versus 1.5 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, what does
then you're
that
talking
even
about
mean?
carbon. The common person don't connect. Second thing, that people have a lot on their mind. They're doing so many other things. So this is one of the million things that they're looking at.
Yep.
So people do believe in climate risk. People do believe in climate change. But people also believe that it's not their job to sort it out or deal with it. Or even they candidly, they think that that can be dealt with in the future.
Yeah.
So with that kind of approach and attitude, how can we tackle the most consequential and the existential threat of our lifetime called climate change? This means everyone must act, everyone must take responsibility, and importantly, everyone should drive transformation. That is all the conversation is about. So in the first 25 years, USGBC did a good job of pushing accountability on our business leaders. Now it's time to push accountability on the individuals to take action.
The individuals meaning everybody.
Everybody has to take action. You can take action, I can take action. We all have a different bandwidth and capabilities.
Right.
Being able to take that. Second thing is be clearly understood through our research. We launched a research campaign by listening to people. And what we first noted was we have a messaging issue. We use things like energy efficiency, carbon, 1.5 degrees Celsius, and carbon mitigation, climate change. People don't connect with it. But
I actually had somebody ask me the other day, what do you mean energy efficiency?
Exactly.
I had to go into it. I was
exactly.
Like, okay.
Even today when I get off the plane, somebody asked me, you work for US Green Building Council. That means you put plants inside a building? So such a bizarre way to
yes,
explain your job profession sometimes. But when you really look at it, people don't understand the term green buildings. And green buildings, in fact, our research shows that only 11% of the people understand the term green buildings. And only 11% in the United States.
Wow.
So forget about a developing country. The work that needs to be done is.
What is a green building?
A green building is the one that is good on the environment, good for its people, and most importantly, good for the economic prosperity. Period. Right? And a green building is a building which is healthy, which is sustainable for the environment, for its people, and most importantly, the bottom line. Right? So while we are looking at the green building, it became very clear that people don't even connect that buildings do have impact on their health and wellness.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So they think that the indoor environmental air quality is something that we talk about a lot, but people don't see air. It's not visible. Nobody is going to drink contaminated water.
Right.
But they don't realize they're always taking in contaminated air only because it's invisible.
Yeah, I mean, we used the LEED rating system almost as the outline for our curriculum in my green building class, and I remember sitting in class really like, wow, that was just blowing me away. Hearing my teacher was an architect, and hearing him talk about the air quality and the lighting temperature, but he did a good job to say, you know, these are the effects on the occupants, right? So you might be sitting at your desk having headaches, but if we can, you know, get you in a cleaner office, cleaner air, better lighting, some natural lighting, people, I mean, I don't know, you might know the statistics on the health and the productivity, but I just remember being blown away by that.
Yeah, I mean, there's numerous studies there. It's very clear green buildings do drive occupant comfort, productivity, human health and wellness of its occupants, and most importantly, creates better living spaces and improves the social, mental, and physical well-being of the people inside those buildings. So when you look at the buildings, finally, we've been talking about all these constructs that are actually delivering value to the owners or the people or the occupants, but they didn't still connect that green buildings are the reason behind those benefits are being given to them. For example, they do understand recycling, they do understand water conservation, they do understand indoor air quality. They pay immediate attention to the fact that, hey, when my child is sick and it is having respiratory illness, whatever I can do to fix that. They're always motivated to do such things, particularly within the building. But they still don't connect that green buildings is the way to really be able to deliver that benefit. So the good news is people know that they can get benefits from their buildings, but they just don't know they can get it from green building strategy.
So the living standard is connecting those dots.
Correct, and connecting the dots, and also really driving people to understand that at the end of the day, instead of focusing on the buildings, let's focus on the people who are inside them. So if you really want to talk about a building, don't talk about a building, talk about the people inside of them, which means that you have to humanize, you have to quantify the human benefits that comes from the building. So when you take energy efficiency, what does an energy efficiency mean? If a building saved energy, what does it mean? Let's say in a home, you save it in a poor neighborhood, $150 in electricity bill means that you can fill 1 week or 2 weeks worth of fridge. You can actually stock your freezer and you can have food for your family for probably 2 months, 3 months, right? So the conversation should be humanized. So when we talk about indoor air quality, let's talk to them in terms of their respiratory illness, being able to have a healthy lifestyle for a pregnant woman who's bearing a child, or talk about molds being removed from a home that is in a poor neighborhood, or for that matter, let's talk about daylight being about improving the cognitive capability of the children and being able to have a much more better sleeping patterns. So when you start contextualizing what a green building and its output and its strategies mean to people, I think it will definitely trigger a different type of conversation, right? I am already seeing the change. By just in 1 year that I've been talking around, people naturally get drawn onto. For example, I told you about the mission statement of USGBC before. It's a mouthful. It takes, it's profound, it's beautiful, even today it works.
Sounds great.
Great, but people don't connect with it. They have never repeated once. I've repeated it probably 10,000 times. Nobody has repeated back to me. But when I said better buildings equal better lives, I can guarantee you that at least 1,000 people have repeated back to me.
I think this is going to be 20 years from now, looking back, I think this is going to be recognized as the turning point. It's like when the conversation was humanized, that's when everything changed.
Correct. And so at the end of the day, one thing is common about all of us. We all deeply care about our fellow humans. Yes, you care about yourself, you care about your family, you care about your friends and family. But nobody sits there and desires, hey, I don't want to do good for somebody else. If they had an opportunity, they will do it.
Yeah, humans are inherently selfish. I mean, there's tons of research behind that.
So why are we not capitalizing on it? So the Living Standard campaign is about exploiting that inherent feel-good stuff and really make it about taking action and taking accountability and driving change, right? Because it's very simple, right? When I look at it, this is how I look at it. The world is split into half. 3 billion people live below the poverty line.
Wow.
So do you think they're thinking about sustainability? They're thinking about indoor air quality.
Right,
they're thinking about coming back and actually figuring out what to do. They're living below the poverty line. They live below $2 a day.
Where's the next meal coming from?
Correct. They're surviving. So what is our obligation? That the remaining 3 points, 4.7, is that pay it forward.
Right.
Just create standards that will raise the bar for them. Just give it to them. So let's stop talking about green buildings. Let's just talk about buildings. Because you cannot buy a black and white TV in the 21st century. Then why are we still selling green buildings? Let's just make them buildings.
I like that.
Right? That's the conversation, that is the moment, and that's what we're trying to do with the living standard.
Awesome. I was pleasantly surprised when I attended Al Gore's Climate Reality Conference how, almost all of it, the focus was on people, especially people living below the poverty line.
Absolutely.
So I guess that brings us to your recent conversation with President Obama at Greenbuild. Isn't that what you guys discussed?
Yeah, I think first of all, it was the most unique opportunity of my lifetime.
Really?
Again, earlier I talked about your grandmother's comment about me embodying the American spirit. Here I am, a person who's born in Chennai, India, among 1.3 billion people, get to interview the 44th President of the United States.
Yeah.
What a unique opportunity.
Definitely.
And I really feel fortunate.
And you said in the article that I read, you said there were kids in your class that came to school just to eat.
Absolutely. I mean, people actually came to get a meal so that they came to school. They didn't come to get educated. Now, when poverty drives you towards education, that's really a bad state of affairs, right? I mean, that's very sad. But regardless, they got a meal, so I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
So the conversation with President Obama was, again, let's go back to what he talked about. We talked about, let me touch on it a little bit, storytelling. He talked about people, people, people. And of course, there is no other president who has done so much for the community. And of course, related to the work that we are doing related to sustainability, many of the initiatives he have taken is very close. But obviously, he understood it very clearly, early and bright, and most importantly, through his policies, that people are where we need to put our focus on. Second, he said that if it cannot be affordable, then you cannot talk about sustainability. Sustainability has to be affordable. So it is very important. That's the second topic we talked about. Again, it's about people.
And that's a common misconception that green buildings and sustainability is way more expensive, right? Isn't that?
Yes, that is a fair criticism. Like any new technology, there is always a price to entry. But that is also the reason that it's not socialized and popularized sufficiently enough. So, for example, the solar panel was very expensive 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Now today, it's super affordable. Why? Because the mass market transformation drives the value down. So if more people use it, things will become a lot more affordable, particularly for people who live below the poverty line, right? So the conversation I had with President Obama was, he talked about stories, but he also talked about memories. And he said memories are always connected to places. And he uniquely talked about his memory in Hawaii. So it's another thread that I learned in the conversation. So when we discussed this, we talked about the global issues like poverty, war, sustainability, equality. Then we talked about sustainability, and he also made it very clear that if you are not going to put your money behind it, then you can talk all day you want, but at the end of the day, it's not going to move the needle. So you have to invest, you have to be vigilant, and you have to understand the localization, and importantly, drive the change from the perspective of actually engaging the larger community to take action, because it cannot be one group doing the work. It has to be everybody doing the work. So those are some memorable moments. But what I want to make a broad comment. What I enjoyed in that conversation was he was so humble, so relaxed, so eloquently he delivered it. I could not believe that I was sitting with the 44th President of the United States and having that conversation. For a second, I didn't feel like I was talking to the president. I felt like I was talking to a friend who I have known for a very long time. So that was very profound, and it reminded me that why we all need to carry that sense of humility in ourselves, because that is the starting point for us to drive sustainability for everyone.
Well, I'm surprised I'm sitting here with you, and that's how I feel like I'm just chatting with a friend. So.
No, that is a little excess. No. I'm glad I'm sitting with you.
Thank you. So what's next? What's the future of the Living Standard campaign?
I think today, this year we have finished 2 reports within the United States. What we did is that we want to take a first pulse of the US, because this is our home ground. And given that all the political challenges that we are facing in this country, it was the most important place we had to focus, because it's our headquarters, it's our place. And what I am encouraged by is the results we have seen, the outputs we have created, the engagement, and most importantly, the shift in the conversation that has happened. Now it's time to scale. One, we already announced it in China. We'll be very soon announcing in India and Europe.
Living Standard.
Living Standard.
So we already have the Green Build conferences in India, China, Europe,
Mexico, right? Europe, and of course in US,
so
5
very
places.
Much global.
Correct, very global.
And now we're taking the Living Standard global.
Correct. Global and local.
Global
because
and
what we want to be is that we want to be global in vision, because anyway, messaging issues are universal in nature. But you need to understand the local context.
Right.
You cannot apply the American equation into the local thing. That's another problem with the green buildings, right? Because from a green building strategy point of view, a building that is created in New York should be same as the building that is created in Delhi. That's the expectation. Why? Because the standards are standards. And the best practices and guidelines and technology and even the construction practices should be equal, because everybody deserves the same level of quality and rigor. But when it comes to people, you cannot equate it that way.
Right.
Because the economic conditions are different, the living conditions are different, the priorities are different.
Culture is different, yeah.
Culture is different, language is different, and so you have to really localize it. So we are going hyper-local by trying to understand what matters to people on the ground, learning from them the language that matters, and then using that language to drive change in them, and then help them to drive the change. So it's about a process. So I'm excited about taking Living Standard global, and next year I hope to have Living Standard. By the end of next year, I should say, Living Standard will be fully globalized and localized.
It's exciting. And speaking of the Living Standard, so where can people access it, and how can they be involved with it? Isn't there a storytelling, a tell your story area on the website?
Absolutely. So first things first, you can go to livingstandard.org. That's where you go. The second one is that everyone has a story to tell. And why you have to tell your story is because as a leader, as a change maker, you have to make first yourself vulnerable. And second, you absolutely will inspire somebody you don't know, because everybody gets inspired by somebody else. So you have an opportunity to uniquely inspire somebody else who you don't know in particular. That's the second. Third is that the most important part of storytelling is that being able to encourage other people to tell the stories, and then through that drive action. We want to be biased for action. At the end of the day, what we don't want is just feel inspired.
Right.
That's another problem we have in the world.
Won't last.
Everybody is inspired by somebody else. No. Done with inspiration, now take action. Do something.
Yeah.
Right? And do something that is good.
I spent a while in that phase. I was inspired, I was ready, and then finally I was like, all right, let's do this.
Correct.
So here we are.
Correct.
So.
Inspiration is good. You learn from others, but you also need to understand sometimes you have to put it in practice. And the best way to do it is that take the first step. So that's the ask.
Yeah. So let's talk more about how everybody has the ability to inspire others. But now let's talk about, everyone has that ability to inspire people, but we also have the ability to, it's almost unfathomable. With all the technology we have access to, the ability that all of us have to impact the world on a global scale. Even just from smartphones. Are there any key, technologies you see that you're excited about in the future of buildings and the built environment?
So, since you talked about everybody can inspire somebody, I'll tell you a small story, because we are in the storytelling conversation. Recently, I just came from Madrid, Spain, and I had a chance to sit with one of the landscape architects. And she talked about a tree that she planted 10 years ago. 10,000 trees were planted as part of the community development. 10,000 trees.
Wow.
10 years later, what she says is she is in awe to see every single time that the community comes around, the children come around and play under the tree. So I kept thinking about this thing, that how many trees did I plant in my lifetime now? Technically speaking, probably I've planted 2 plants.
Yeah.
I've not planted any tree. And I've never tracked it. So what if all of us planted 1 tree, at least 1 tree? It'll be a very different world. So when you talk about making a difference, I thought that was a very profound step we can take. Anyway, I couldn't help being excited about that story.
Yeah.
Now, related to technologies, when I talk about technology, I will go back to my roots. India spent a lot of time investing on educating people. For 70 years since we have been independent, free country, we have spent a lot of money and time trying to educate people, particularly at the bottom of the pyramid, to come to school, learn, write their names, sign, etc. They never cared. They never cared. It didn't build enough traction, or when they did it, it was not consistent, it was not going. Then in the last decade, the iPhone comes. The smartphone gets created.
Yep.
And the smartphone comes, and then people suddenly feel like, I can connect with you. So I have a phone, you have a phone, we can connect. Now, how do you connect on a phone? You have to be educated. You cannot be an illiterate. You have to know something.
So now there's something in it for them.
Correct. And by the way, they are native language speakers. They are not English speakers. They don't even know the English alphabet. Now, you and I learned 26 characters in English. They only learned 4 characters now. L-I-K-E. because they want to get on the Facebook and like the picture. So when you think of technology being an enabler for that kind of transformation, to me, that is the power of technology. That is the opportunity that we can create with all the technologies that we have, is to drive a larger behavioral change. So the technologies that excite me, continue to excite me, are the mobile technology. But the mobile technology that actually serves the need for the people at the bottom of the pyramid to be able to quickly share information, learn, and really be able to act on it. So that is what is exciting in the
so
grand scheme of things.
You're most excited about the connectivity and our ability to get those stories out to everybody.
Correct, and also being able to have that community engagement. So today, a person in India who has no access to you and me can contact you, because if they connect through WhatsApp, they can connect with you.
Yeah.
All they need to do is they're 1 degree separated. Before, we used to be million miles apart. Now we're just 1 degree separated. If you accept their connect and I connect. So that means that you can help that person. You can present their story better. They can learn from you. That ability to do that peer-to-peer sharing, peer-to-peer connectivity, and most importantly, peer-to-peer transformation, and then put that network effect into play is fascinating. And that is built on the foundation of data, mobility, connectivity, and most importantly, having contextual data. So that data is served to you as much as you need to know and when to know. So that is what I'm excited by. And this is not just one piece of technology, but the fact the outcome of the technology can be so powerful to create a larger market transformation is powerful.
So it's right back to humanizing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It all goes back to a technology being able to help the humans. And if that can do, then I think we can definitely desire that the world will be in a better place than it is now.
So how did you coin the term partnership as the new leadership?
Partnership is the new leadership.
Why?
Why? Because what happened was, when you look at USGBC, I came from the corporate world. In 2009, when I joined USGBC, I was amused, in fact, by USGBC, thinking, why everybody comes to USGBC to give things to USGBC? You cannot underestimate the power of USGBC around the world. Wherever I go, I am given the utmost respect, recognition, I would say better than a red carpet. I call it a golden carpet every single time. And I always thought about, why are we getting that kind of recognition? Then I realized it's because of our mission. It's because of the fact that so many people, so many organizations got together and created this larger premise called we have to do something better. That was all because of partnership. You name it, architects, engineers, contractors, government leaders, non-profit leaders, single family moms, school administrators, you name it, product manufacturers, everybody came and said, take it, let me give you, let me invest in you. So that happened. So it was very important as a Jim Collins student is to remember the 4 things. The first book of Jim Collins is Built to Last. Second book is Good to Great. The third book was How Mighty Fall. And fourth book is Great by Choice. So I never want to be in the third book. And the way to avoid not being in the third book is to understand that you cannot do everything by yourself. You can actually convene. You have the power to convene. You have the intent to convene. But you can only do things better for the greater planet by bringing people together, by partnering with them, by actually having disparate and diverse perspectives. That only makes you better. And then you take the responsibility to organize it, orchestrate it, and then use that as your ammunition to go to the next level. I mean, you have to be a leader to do that. That's where partnership is the new leadership.
Awesome. And you were just giving me some advice for me, but also for entrepreneurs about, you said if you're the conductor, you can't hold an instrument, huh?
Yeah, I think what entrepreneurs struggle with is that there are many types of entrepreneurs. But once you start trying to do everything yourself, then you're not going to be good at the things that you want to do.
Solopreneur, huh?
Correct. So solopreneur is a good word. So the question is, you have to make a choice. I don't normally judge. It's all about one's comfort. If you want to be a solopreneur, that's okay. Then stick to it. Then don't try to be an entrepreneur in your example.
Yeah, it's different.
If you're going to be an entrepreneur, if your goal is to be a CEO, if your goal is to be the person who's going to set the trend and different direction, then invest heavily on the people that you recruit. Again, partnership is the new leadership. Without a great team, you cannot go to battle. We all know that. And the most important part is picking up a team takes a very long time. Good team members take a very long time. That's why I like to create a symphony. And to create a symphony, one, you need to know very good about music. Second, you need to be able to put together a good team. Then third, you should be able to make them play together and play to your tune. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. So We've talked about how people can make it. We've talked about a lot. We've talked about how people can make a difference. Is going all in enough?
I don't think, after reading the IPCC report in October 2018, going all in is not enough.
So what do we need?
So today what we have, let me give a little bit of color to it. What I mean by that is that if we continue the current pace of transformation, let's say in the sustainability movement, with products, with buildings, with communities, with cities, even current pace, we will be back to the pre-industrial levels in 2040. That means we are not going to meet the climate change expectation requirements on 2050. Now, whether you're a believer of climate change or not doesn't matter. 2050, you cannot meet the goals. You are proving it is correct or not, number one. Number two is that 2040 is not too far away, because a child born today will be in elementary school in 2030, will be a professional in 2040, will be a well-established leader in the community in 2050. And I think I'm going to be alive in 2050, and I'm definitely sure you're going to be alive in 2050. You're a lot younger than me. So, based on that, it is very important that people are not just all in. People need to be all out. It is no longer time for incremental leadership. People have to be decisive, selfless, set a goal, and achieve the goal. For example, if you have a building today, let's say you live in a home, or let's say you're looking at your parents' home, where will that building be in 2050? And work it backwards. Where do you want the building to be in 2050? Do you want that building to be the best, greenest building in the world? Or, given your slogan about net positive, basically a building that is actually producing more energy than it uses, or removes more carbon than it produces, saves more water than it uses. Do you want that to be truly net positive building?
That's what I'm
conversation
most excited for, So I guess I'm going all out for net positive infrastructure.
Absolutely. So the whole idea is that you want to have net positive, because nobody is going to say, I want to have lesser than net positive health.
Right.
You're not going to say it.
No.
And your family, you're going to have a family in the future, and you're going to develop your lifestyle, you're going to have children at that time. You're not going to say, I'm going to give you a future which is less than net positive. You're going to give the best thing that you can at that point of time based on all your capabilities, but you will strive to be a positive contributor to the society, to the environment, and to the economy. So based on that, I believe truly that now is the time for people like you and me to really step in and encourage us ourselves, people within our community and outside our community, to really not just be all in, but to be all out and be decisive and lead with the goals in mind and really measure ourselves against that. That's all.
I love it. Well, I'm going all out. I appreciate your time. Tell everybody where they can find the USGBC. How can they get involved? What would you like people to do?
I think 3 simple things people can do. One is go to usgbc.org, read about us, know about us. If you don't understand about us, contact us. We'll help you. Second is that everybody must contribute to a community. Be it a school, be it a senior health center, be it a voluntary space, be it your church, be it the park. Look around and see, are sustainable actions taking place? If not, raise awareness by asking questions. Easiest way to do that is through the community. So join our local USGBC community and chapters. Third is that at least once attend Green Build, so that you will see the world green building community come together.
Yep.
You
won't regret it.
Exactly. You came and you were transformed.
Yeah,
so
certainly.
Come there to know what others are doing. Come there to inspire other people. And last but not the least, contribute by taking meaningful actions, which drives outcomes. And then last but not the least, I have to talk about the next generation, right? Let's not leave this planet in a dire state for the next generation to deal with, because they did not create the problems we have today. We created them. So it's our responsibility for a child that's born today to have a healthy and a net positive environment for the future. So that's what I would say, that from the consequence and accountability point of view, that's what we are all accountable for. But importantly, the way to do that is take the first step. Then you can take the million steps after.
I love it. Well, you heard the man. First step, go subscribe, share this, Facebook, Instagram, wherever. Subscribe on YouTube, audio platforms. Definitely go to the usgbc.org and check out the Living Standard second issue now and get involved, and let's do this. We're going all out. Thanks again, Mahesh.
Thank you, Sam. Excellent.